Hello, today I'm joined by my guest Bradley Kieser from SMS Speedway. How are you doing, Bradley?
Hey David, all right. It's a very busy time of year as we head into the new year and the start of the property cycle where all the agents are starting to get all the lettings requests coming in and the sales are starting to heat up now post Christmas and New Year and holidays and everything else. So we're starting to see quite a strong start to the year, which is always good. I know a lot of agents out there are finding the market a bit variable because of geopolitics right now. And that's actually driving a lot of interest in what we're doing and the automations to give them some security. So we've been very busy. How about your good self?
Yeah, we're always busy. We always enjoy talking to the best and the brightest in our industry, both on the agent side and the supplier side. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to tell you that we're joined by one of the greats here, who's been helping agents to communicate with their customers and their audiences for a long, long time. And so there's an awful lot that we can learn from Bradley today. I've spent quite a bit of time with agents over the last couple of weeks, and we talk about how the market's going. We talk about what they find on a day-to-day basis. And would you believe it? Simple things like viewing feedback, and getting decent feedback and trying to sort of reach people post-viewing. We need the feedback, whether it's good or it's bad. I think that a lot of us work on the basis that if it's good, i.e., they're interested in the property, they'll make an effort to communicate with us because we have something that they want. But there's an awful lot of times where they aren't going to proceed with that property, but you need the feedback anyway to manage the expectations of the vendor who spent all day cleaning up and moving out the house just so you could show it around. And also they need to know what people thought of their house. And if you're an agent and you're advising your customer, the only way that you can do that and frame it authentically is by saying, look, this is, the market has spoken. And what the market is saying about your property is X, Y, and Z. And sometimes we can spend hours chasing people on the phone to do that. There is a smarter, better way to do it, and I'm hoping you can show us how to turn some viewings into offers, and talk to us about a feedback workflow that agencies are actually using today, to great effect.
Well, that's a great introduction, David. Thanks. Bluntly, if you don't do feedback, you're leaving money on the table, and you're leaving money on the table in more than one way. First of all, if someone wants to move ahead with the property, the whole point of showing them the property is to be able to progress the transaction. If you're not following up immediately and saying, do you want to go ahead or not? Ask that golden question and then act on it. So the minute you've got a yes, get that offer in, move that transaction along. It's such a competitive environment. You might have had a yes, but then someone down the road has actually snaffled your commission and, is progressing it. And we do see quite a bit of this actually. Not a huge amount, but there's a consistent level of this sort of lost transaction, lost opportunity that our customers report to us before they put these automations in. And that's the whole point of having these automations. So after a viewing has happened, then we get that question to them, do you want to proceed or not? Now, we follow up with a few more questions just to be able to determine, if it's negative, what's going wrong,
Yeah.
why would that be
What's the
negative?
reason that you don't want to proceed? Yeah.
Exactly. Because that person showed up to the viewing. They've got money to spend. They want to do a transaction. There may be a few tire kickers, but generally, if someone's making the effort to go to viewings, they want to purchase a property. They want to proceed with something. So if you just say, "Oh well, okay, fine then," and just leave them, you're losing a future transaction with another property that might be better. So what we do is we get the questions in front of them and in a way that's highly likely to get a response. Because the other problem with feedback is no one likes feedback. You can't even go to motorway services these days without having to press a smiley face or an unhappy face.
How
It's
clean
just
was the
everywhere.
toilet? Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for buying your coffee. Can we ask you a quick question about the quality of the coffee or the service so getting that feedback is difficult. And what does that mean? It's costly. It costs time from negotiators. It's not just the cost of their hourly wage chasing feedbacks, it's also the cost of them not being at another viewing, not being at another appraisal, not being at another session on the phones, hunting down new business, new leads, new prospects. So your actual cost of having agents tied up chasing feedback is much higher than most agents actually recognize. And when these automations go in, the feedback we get from the agents is that they didn't realize how much, frankly, money they left on the table. Um, so we automate it. We follow up, we chase automatically in a polite way. We don't harass people or spam people, and fully branded to the agent's
So just
branding.
for people that aren't familiar with what you've done previously, I've got a lot of context. I know you've got more context than most. Well, if you don't know what you're doing, then nobody does, right? But if you can explain what it is that people are actually seeing. So is this a message they're receiving? Is it by text? Is it WhatsApp? What are we doing?
So it works on all messaging platforms. We've got WhatsApp, we've got SMS, and other messaging platforms are available too. And after the viewing, the customer gets, for example, a text message. It can be a WhatsApp, and says, to save you a phone call, can you spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just sort of answering this question? The wording can vary, it's entirely customizable. And a bit of a digression. We did some research, and I'd like to just give a shout out to the customers who allowed us to use their feedback for this research because they were very kind and generous in doing that. They're part of our early adopters scheme and they take part in these sort of initiatives. And we sent out many thousands of messages, genuine post viewing messages, testing various wording. Do you know that the response rate, depending on the wording, just the wording, okay, varied from 6% response rates to 90% up to 100% during the sample size response rate? The same questions that we were going to ask, the same timing, but the wording makes a difference. And the good old British public never fails to amuse us. So most people think that when you send a feedback out, you do something like ask what did you think of the property, or we would like to get some feedback. Most people put the word feedback in the sentence, and or do you mind if we ask you about the property, something like that. If you're using that wording, bad news, you're failing miserably. You, you're at the bottom. You've got, I won't say you're at the bottom of the pile because that's rude, but let's just say you've got room for improvement in the new way that they phrase things in school curricula
And
these
and and I
days.
suppose that's just simple human psychology. Certain phrases, certain words, certain ways of asking better questions gets better answers, right?
Absolutely. I'm delaying slightly so the people who watch this can think, what is the best wording? I'm going to tell you. The number one best way to phrase something is to avoid a phone call or um, click on the link to tell us what you thought. Otherwise, we will call you. Sort of not quite as aggressively phrased as that, but the most effective was to avoid a phone call. Can you please tell us, on the associated link, because every single one of us don't want to be called. We would prefer just to click on the phone and give our feedback. This correlates with other data we collected during the pandemic when we were asking about mental health and that on behalf of council. So it's not just in a state agency that people don't want to get called. Generally, people prefer answering questions and preferences on the phone. Number two, okay, that had in excess of a 90% success rate, okay, in the sample size. In the real world, you would get slightly lower, but it's the best response. But the second best response is no worries if it's a no, or no worries if it's a low rating.
You give
Okay,
them
so
an
you
out.
you give them an out, we still need to know. So so the two things that it's telling us about the great British public is we don't want to be called and we don't want to embarrass ourselves or other people. All the other questions just sort of fade into the rearview mirror, other than those sort of wordings. So we use this psychology, we monitor it, we don't just passively um, send messages for people. We actively see what works and what doesn't, and we work with our customers to improve response rates, and we get them to click a link. No more than three messages with some free text, and the golden question is, do you want to continue with this property? Do you want to make an offer? Yes or no? And depending on that, the rest of your questions, if it's a yes, you don't need to know anything else. It's a yes. They want to go ahead.
The
You know?
ultimate feedback. Yeah.
Exactly. If it's a no, then that's where the savings and the efficiencies really come into their own. Because with a no, you want to know what it the look and feel. So we can ask them for star ratings. Was the location right? 1 to 5 star rating, or they can just reply back in free text. I didn't like it because of this or that, and our AI will interpret that and fill the form in for them. And they can answer as many of the questions as they want. Um, Click the submit, and then we've got that feedback, and it's an actionable item. If they don't want to proceed, then the the obvious next question that we do is to say, well, would you like to see other properties?
Yes.
You didn't like this for these reasons, and our system, our AI, is intelligent enough to acknowledge the reasons why, and then do an intelligent search taking their preferences into account. And we'll update those preferences back into the CRM if it supports those
Yeah.
reasons.
So,
If it
which is
doesn't,
great because that's end-to-end feedback, isn't it? And it's not just taking the
absolutely.
feedback and passing it on or placing it where you can reach it later, but it's also taking that to actually to better serve the customer because you can refine their search preferences based on their actual real life experiences.
Absolutely. Automatically, when you're doing your property matches for new properties that come in, it's now taking those preferences into account without the negotiators ever having to maintain the screens in the CRM. If the CRM doesn't support some of the reasons that the feedback gives, we actually have it in our system anyway, and we can support more advanced property matching and self serve matching. So if they say I want to have a look at other properties, then it will take that into account. It applies AI to the searches in addition to the usual stuff that's in the usual filtering that's in the CRMs as well. So they get an intelligent response back. They can intelligently review other properties, and be kept updated. So the negative feedback in a it is almost more important than the positive feedback because that is you continuing to make to make a sale on another property that you would otherwise have lost.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Once again, all of this stuff is if we had all the time in the world, and that is the
Mhm.
one commodity that we very often don't have because our jobs have become just a lot more involved with various different bits that we have to do. But if we had all the time in the world, I'd be on the phone talking to you, Bradley, after your viewing. You'd have all the time in the world to talk to me. You wouldn't mind taking the call, and I would sit there and refine your search criteria based on what you're saying. But in the real world, I'm too busy to do that, and you're too busy to take a call from me. And I think this is a beautiful halfway meeting point between the two zones of kind of real world agency where you actually pick up the phone and talk to a human, and catching that human when it's most convenient for them in a format that is most convenient for them.
Absolutely, and 24 hours a day. So
Absolutely.
you're not calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning when I've decided to answer you.
Yeah.
It's it's that 24/7 service, and you summed it up beautifully there, David. It's all about the convenience, and it's about the time, and it's about freeing those negotiators up to act on the warm and the hot leads and leave the automation to do the housekeeping,
So
the admin side of it.
So I think that sort of adequately sums up how it helps and what it does, and also the pain point that it's solving. So tell us, is this live now? Because you mentioned it was with your
Yes.
early adopters, but it's being deployed at the moment?
It's being rolled out, yes. There's a little bit of a queue. There's quite a lot of demand for this, so we've had to manage it. And the early adopters who helped us with the research to get this correct, they were front of the queue. They now are all live with it. There's a second tranche of customers that are currently going live, and now we are opening it up to anyone else who's interested. It's generally available, and if you just contact SMS Speedway, then we'll be able to get you set up.
And
This
and
is
am I right in saying that, subject to obviously there being availability, and this great pent-up demand, which is brilliant to see. I'm presuming it's available to all agents. It's suitable for anybody, basically.
it is suitable for anyone. The priority right now is with repits, agents that have repits. That's got the best integration, but any agent can benefit from it, and we can get any agent live with it if they want. Um, but you're going to have to just if you see this and you're interested, get hold of us because because there is a bit of a queue, and expect there to be a at the moment we currently have between a 2 to 3 week delay with implementation.
Okay.
That's just because it does take our staff to configure it and just to make sure that we've got the wording right and the branding right and everything. So it is customized to each agency. We can advise you on to, for example, as to the correct number of follow up. So of chaser messages and the wording, and also what happens if we don't succeed. Then the feedback system will notify the negotiator and say, look, we've tried our best. We've tried to contact them 3 times, for example, if it's set to try 3 times, and we didn't succeed. So we will assume they're not interested, but you might have a go at it. Um, so that sort of configuration, do they want it to go back to the negotiator? Do they want it to go to a customer service team? Do
Yeah.
they not want us to do anything? Do they just want to assume that there's, a negative, and the person, just isn't going to give them feedback?
I refuse to believe that the good agents are not listening to feedback. No, 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 no. So, Bradley, what practically speaking, what's the sort of cost of this?
It's £150 setup and £50 service fee a month.
Okay, that sounds reasonable and easy.
It's if you're an agent and you're going to take on a new instruction, and you're sitting opposite the vendor and you say, oh, we're going to put up this board, we're going to have fantastic photographs, we're going to advertise it across all the portals, but you know what, after a feedback, after viewing, we're not going to bother following up with them, mate. If they're interested, they can call us in it. You're not going to win that instruction, are you?
It's one of those weird markets as well, I think, where we've got vendors and sellers who want to sell, but they want to sell at their price, and they're not necessarily listening to
Yeah,
market feedback when we go to value for them. They're not necessarily taking out. I mean, why should they listen to us? We're only property professionals. We only do it every day of the week. But people come to the market with their own preconceptions, and they
hmm
want the feedback to sort of prove them right. But very often we need the feedback as an educational tool. And I think that if you want to keep, so if you've got a property that might be slightly heavy in price, it's going to sit on the market for longer, which means those vendors need servicing, which means that they'll get itchy feet if you don't keep in
hmm
regular contact with them. One of the
hmm
best ways that you can keep them where you want them and what's useful is to give them the feedback and to say, look, this is what we're doing, this is what we're hearing, and we can't change where the property is, we can't change the direction
yeah,
it faces in, but
yeah.
these are certain things that we can do, but we can most certainly look at the pricing and the positioning of it. And I think that leads to a much better informed conversation rather than, nah, yeah, Bradley came to look at it, wasn't for him. Wasn't for him just means nobody likes being rejected, but rejection with a bit of qualification is education, isn't it?
Absolutely. But also, it's an opportunity because that person who rejected this particular property might be interested in another one. Now, take from the point of view of the vendor, if you've shown someone another property, another buyer who hasn't signed up to view your property, and it turns out that actually there's something about your property that's really important to that person, without actually getting feedback from them, how would you ever know that they actually qualify for this particular property? And they may well buy it because it's got this unique feature. Someone might say, well, I particularly want tiles in the kitchen, you
Yeah.
know, and this one had carpet. And then you say, well, hold on, sir, this other property that's actually a bit heavy hasn't had much interest because no one else wants tiles in the kitchen is quite, it's perfect
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, and it's cool because it's using technology to sort of mimic old school estate agency because we used to cross
Yes.
sell the whole time. You used to take somebody to see something and they'd go, I don't like this, and you go, hang on, this property around the corner has got everything that you're saying that
Yeah.
you want. Let me take you there. So I really endorse this. I think it's a great use of technology to sort of back up those traditional skills, if you like, and to reach people and get decent feedback. You've got agents using it, and we mentioned briefly what they're experiencing, but have you got any sort of standout stats or anything that you want people to remember after watching this?
Just remember 6% versus 80%. you, you, the, lean on our experience. Talk to us. We've done the maths, we've done the research, we've got a very long history in this game, and we can help you maximize your efficiency on that. The number one problem after stock that agents have right now is they've got resourcing problems. They don't have enough people to do the work. And there's a number of reasons. Either they cannot recruit them or, the cost of staff these days. It's all about the efficiency. It's all about maximizing the revenue each member of your staff can bring in. And through using these automations, you're freeing up time that otherwise would have been spent on something that mostly isn't actually driving the transactions. So lean on the automations and free up your staff, and lean on us.
I think that's a perfect way to end this discussion. Do lean on Bradley and his team. They are immensely knowledgeable about just communication in general. If I had a communication problem and I wanted to know how to reach the audience efficiently, I'd ask Brad. I think it's the experience that you've got. We discussed off camera that there's a lot of different solutions floating around at the moment. There's a lot of buzz around AI, but you guys have been doing deep integrations with CRMs and agents for years now. So I think you're a little bit ahead of the curve, but also you understand the game that we play. It isn't just an AI product that you can apply to anything else. This is specifically built for a state agency, which I think is worth its weight in gold. But they're also lovely people as well. So if you take some time, use their knowledge. If nothing else, don't even take their products. Just drive them mad and steal all their good tips. But they're more than happy to help. Bradley, thank you very much for joining me today.
Good to see you again, David.
Thank you.